Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into something absolutely massive, one of the most sweeping, tragic, and honestly magnificent stories in all of myth, of Tuor and the fall of Gondolin. This is a huge story. We're talking about a mortal man handpicked by a god, a spectacularly beautiful elven city hidden completely away from the darkness of the world, and, well, the absolutely devastating consequences of hubris. It's a tale that perfectly captures what happens when we just refuse to let go of the things we've built, even when destruction is quite literally knocking at our door. All right, let's dive into this.
So, our story kicks off with Tuor. And man, Tuor did not have it easy. He wasn't exactly born into luxury. After his father fell in the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, Tuor was actually fostered by elves, but he was eventually captured and enslaved for 3 brutal years by Lorgon, chief of the Easterlings. But Tuor was a survivor. He escaped, and he lived as a solitary outlaw until this really profound divine unquiet was placed in his heart. Drawn irresistibly westward, he finally reached the shores of the Great Sea. There, right as autumn was approaching, he saw these 7 great swans flying south. Recognizing this as a clear sign that he'd lingered just a bit too long, he followed their flight right down the coast to the deserted halls of Vinyamar.
Now picture this. Tuor is standing by the shore, and suddenly this massive storm brews right out of the west. Out of those crashing waves, Ulmo, the Lord of Waters himself, arises in just terrifying majesty. But Ulmo hasn't come just to put on a spectacular show. He has a very specific, monumental task for Tuor. He commands this lone mortal man to seek out the hidden elven kingdom of Gondolin. This is a city whose exact location is a closely guarded secret. I mean, even the Dark Lord Morgoth doesn't know where it is. To help him, Ulmo gives Tuor this great cloak to mantle him in shadow, effectively hiding him from the eyes of his enemies. But here's the really crucial part. Ulmo also gives Tuor a profound warning to deliver to Gondolin's ruler, King Turgon. He says, "Love not too well the work of thy hands and the devices of thy heart, and remember that the true hope of the Noldor lieth in the west and cometh from the sea." You know, the core point here is that Ulmo knows Gondolin's time is running out. He's trying to warn the king that holding onto his safe space too tightly, falling a bit too much in love with his own creation, is going to be his absolute undoing.
Section 1, The Warning Ignored, a divine message. The very next morning after the storm, Tuor bumps into an elf named Voronway. He's actually a mariner who was miraculously saved from a shipwreck by Ulmo himself. Filled with wonder at Tuor's divine mandate, Voronway agrees to be his guide. And let me tell you, their journey is incredibly harsh. They're traveling eastward under the bitter, freezing cold of the fell winter. Along the way, they witness the defiled pools of Ivren, which had been totally ruined by the passage of Glaurung the dragon. They even silently pass this tall, mysterious man in black bearing a black sword. It's just a dark, deeply perilous journey through a world that is rapidly falling to Morgoth's malice. But against all odds, guided by Ulmo's power, they actually make it. They slip through the hidden door, they pass into a secret tunnel, get taken prisoner by the guard, and are led up the Orfilch Acor, which is this mighty ravine barred by 7 consecutive gates. Finally, Tuor looks down upon the Vale of Tumlidin, this breathtaking green jewel of a valley, and sees Gondolin, the great city of 7 names. When he's finally brought before Turgon, High King of the Noldor, Tuor doesn't even speak with his own voice. He speaks with the majestic words of the Lord of Waters, delivering that chilling command, abandon this fair city, go down the river Sirion, and flee to the sea.
But tragically, Turgon's pride wins out. Gondolin has become as beautiful as a memory of their ancient homeland, and Turgon just completely trusts its secret, impregnable strength above everything else. So he flat out refuses the counsel of the god. In a tragic display of both paranoia and arrogance, he actually orders the very entrance to the hidden door in the encircling mountains to be permanently blocked up. He literally forbids his people from ever leaving. He chooses isolation and his own walls over wisdom and movement.
Section 2, The Seeds of Treason, Danger from Within. You know, when you completely seal a society off from the rest of the world, the greatest dangers often brew right from within. Look at this contrast. On the one hand, we have the king's daughter, Idril. She is incredibly wise and far-seeing, and she starts to sense this foreboding cloud over the city. Acting on that intuition, she secretly begins constructing an underground escape route leading out beneath the plain. On the other hand, we have the king's nephew Maeglin. Maeglin moves mining above literally all else. Totally defying the king's strict orders, he frequently takes his folk beyond the protective leaguer of the hills just to search for metals. One of them is quietly preparing for disaster, the other is actively inviting it. Now, before the actual disaster strikes, there is a period of real immense joy. Tuor stays in Gondolin, just totally enthralled by its beauty and wisdom. Over the next 7 years, he rises so high in the king's favor that Turgon actually grants him the hand of his daughter, Idril, in marriage. This is a monumental event, marking only the second union of elves and men. The next spring, their son Eärendil is born, a child of just surpassing beauty with the light of heaven in his face. But, of course, this peace is immensely fleeting. By the time Eärendil reaches his 7th year, the darkness finally catches up to them.
And here we hit the absolute point of no return, the crucial point of failure. Maeglin, while out secretly mining outside the hills, gets captured by orcs and dragged to Angband. Threatened with just horrific torment, his spirit breaks. He commits what is arguably the most infamous treachery in the histories of the Elder Days. He purchases his own life and freedom by giving Morgoth the exact location of Gondolin. In exchange, Morgoth promises him the lordship of the city as a vassal, and the possession of Idril, whom Maeglin secretly desires and hates Tuor for marrying. Morgoth then sends Maeglin back to Gondolin with a smiling face and absolute evil in his heart, just waiting for the right moment to strike.
Section 3. Fire and Ruin. The Fall of Gondolin. Morgoth is incredibly patient. He waits until his forces are utterly overwhelming. Then he looses this terrifying host right over the northern hills, where Gondolin's watch is the least vigilant. And this isn't just a regular army. It's a living nightmare. We're talking swarms of orcs, vicious wolves, mighty Balrogs, and the now numerous and terrible dragons of the brood of Glaurung. Worse still, Morgoth times the attack flawlessly. He strikes at night, right before the great festival of the Gates of Summer, when the people are gathered on the walls eagerly awaiting the dawn. But that red light that mounts the hills that morning, it comes from the north, not the east. It's the fire of dragons. It's just absolute devastation. This supposedly impregnable paradise is totally consumed by flame. The steam of the fair fountains withers under the intense dragon fire, creating these mournful, thick mists over the entire valley. The accounts of this battle are filled with desperate, heartbreaking valor. You have Ectilion of the Fountains slaying Gothmog, the lord of Balrogs, at the cost of his own life. You have King Turgon defending his mighty tower to the bitter end until it is finally overthrown, the king falling in its ruin. And amidst the chaotic sack of the city, Maeglin attempts to claim Idril and young Eärendil, but Tuor intercepts him, fights him right on the walls, and casts the traitor down into the flames below.
Section 4. Escape through the cleft. A desperate bid.
In the midst of this slaughter, Tuor and Idril manage to gather the remnants of their people and lead them down that secret way Idril had the incredible foresight to build. They climb up into the high freezing mountains, eventually reaching a dreadful pass named Cirith Thoranoth, the Eagle's Cleft. Now this is a narrow, terrifying path with a sheer precipice on one side and a deep abyss on the other. And right here they are ambushed by orcs and a Balrog. The refugees absolutely would have been annihilated if not for the golden-haired hero Glorfindel. In this legendary, incredibly tense duel on a pinnacle of rock, Glorfindel fights the Balrog, and tragically both of them end up falling to their ruin in the abyss below. But Glorfindel's sacrifice wasn't in vain. Right when all seems lost, Thorindor, the Lord of Eagles, swoops down out of the sky with his flock. They stoop upon the orcs, driving them back and casting them right off the cliffs into the deeps. Because of this swift airborne assault, not a single enemy survives to report back to Morgoth. The rumor of their escape remains a complete secret, buying the battered survivors precious, precious time. Thorindor even bears Glorfindel's body up from the abyss so he can be buried right beside the pass, where yellow flowers miraculously bloom upon his stony grave.
Section 5. A Sea-Bound Destiny. The Final Chapter.
Led by Tuor, the grieving remnant of Gondolin slowly journeys south. They rest for a time in the Land of Willows, making songs for their fallen loved ones, before they finally settle by the mouths of the river Sirion, right near the sea. Over time, Tuor begins to feel the weight of old age creeping upon him, but that unyielding, divine call of the ocean, the exact same calling almost sparked in him all those years ago, it only grows stronger. So he builds a great ship named Ariame, the Sea Wing. With Idril by his side, he sets sail into the sunset and the west. And it is sung that Tuor, alone among all mortal men, was granted a totally unique fate
to actually be numbered among the elves he loved so dearly, his destiny forever sundered from the fate of men.
Which brings us to a really haunting question. Turgon's beautiful city is nothing but ashes because he loved the work of his own hands too much to heed a divine warning. He honestly believed his walls could hold back the changing tides of the world. So what happens to us when we refuse to let go of our proudest creations, ignoring the red flags and the warnings until change is literally forced upon us? It's a powerful lesson from an ancient myth that still feels incredibly relevant to us today. Thank you for joining me for this explainer of Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.